He did not storm out. He did not raise his voice. He just stopped talking. The moment the fight ended, he looked them in the eye, then vanished. No apology, no message, nothing. And yet, within days, they were the ones reaching out, desperate to reconnect. This is the paradox no one teaches. When you say sorry first, you lose something invisible. Control, leverage, presence. Machiavelli understood that the world is not moved by who was right, but by who remained unmoved. And the one who never says sorry first always walks away with more power. After every argument, there is a moment of weakness. The silence that follows feels heavy, like something unfinished. Most people rush to fill it with apologies, with explanations, with emotional bandages. They think they are repairing something, but they are not. They are surrendering control. Because the first person to apologize is not just offering peace, they are admitting defeat. Even if both sides were wrong, the one who speaks first rewrites the story. It is subtle, but powerful. They confirm guilt, they relieve the other's discomfort, and they place themselves beneath the person they are apologizing to. Most do not notice it, but they feel it. The apologizer now owes something. Their words shift the emotional balance from mutual tension to one-sided resolution. And that resolution always favors the one who stayed silent. In every social conflict, there is a hidden contest of endurance. Who can hold the silence longer? Who can sit with tension without breaking? Most people think the strongest move is to make peace, to be the bigger person. But Machiavelli would argue that peace offered too early is not strength, it is desperation, and desperation always reveals itself. What most call emotional maturity is often just the fear of being disliked. But power is not earned through self-blame. It is built through restraint. The moment you say, "I'm sorry," you are handing the other person the final word. They now get to decide whether to forgive you, whether to prolong your punishment, whether to bring it up again later. They become the judge, and you become the one waiting for a verdict. Even if they were cruel, your apology places them above you. And this is where people lose not just the argument, but the entire relationship dynamic. Because from that moment on, the other person knows they can outlast you. They know that if they push hard enough, stay silent long enough, you will fold. And once that pattern is set, it becomes impossible to unlearn. You become predictable. You become emotionally obedient. So instead of scrambling for closure, wait. Let them feel the weight of their own words. Let them reach for you. Because the one who breaks the silence first is not the strongest. They are simply the one who needed resolution more. And in the psychology of power, needing less always means owning more. Regret is the most subtle trap ever designed for the human mind. It disguises itself as morality, as healing, as growth. But in the wrong moment, it becomes pure psychological sabotage. Most people feel regret as soon as the argument ends. The words echo in their head. The silence feels wrong. Their mind replays everything they could have said better, and guilt starts to rise like smoke through the cracks. That's when the pressure begins, not from the other person, but from within. The voice that says, "Fix it, make it right, say something." And that voice is not strategic, it's emotional. It does not care about timing, advantage, or perception. It only wants relief. But if you act from that place, you lose the game before it even starts. Because Machiavelli understood something most never grasp. In human relationships, emotions are currency. And the one who spends first loses the leverage. Regret, when revealed too early, gives your opponent the script. They now know you're affected. They know you're second guessing. They know you're vulnerable. And that changes everything. Your apology becomes a confession. Your softness becomes a signal. And worst of all, your regret gives them the spotlight. Now it's their turn to decide whether to punish you, forgive you, or ignore you completely. You become the one waiting. And there is nothing more powerless than waiting for someone else's emotional decision. But what if you did not act on regret? What if you felt it, held it, studied it, and said nothing? That is where real power begins. Because the moment you learn to feel remorse without leaking it, you become dangerous. You can acknowledge your mistakes without kneeling. You can process your own guilt in silence without handing someone else the upper hand. This is not about being cold or heartless. It is about being deliberate. Regret is only useful when it leads to change, not when it leads to surrender. And the truth is, most people do not want resolution. They want reassurance. They want to see that they still have emotional influence over you. So when you say sorry too soon, what you're really saying is, you still control me. That's the secret most never see. Regret, when exposed too early, becomes a tool for manipulation. It becomes a script others can read and rewrite. But when you hold your regret privately, when you reflect without reacting, you remain in control. You stay above the noise. You become the one who decides when and how to speak, not because you feel pressured, but because it serves your purpose. And that shift changes everything. Because in a world addicted to instant emotional relief, the person who waits holds the throne. And the one who holds their regret in silence becomes untouchable. There is a silent battle that begins the moment conflict ends. Not a battle of words, but of patience. The first person to speak is not always the one with the best argument. More often, they are simply the one who could not bear the weight of tension. That tension is where true power lives. Because after the fire of confrontation dies down, something more dangerous takes its place: uncertainty. Who will break first? Who will reach out? Who will try to patch the crack in the relationship? Most people do not even realize this is a contest. They follow their instinct to repair, to clarify, to make things feel normal again. But Machiavelli would tell you the one who moves first forfeits the throne. In every human interaction, there is a hidden scoreboard. After a fight, the scoreboard resets. It is not about who was right. It is about who can hold their posture. The one who waits becomes the judge, the mirror, the standard. They force the other person to react, to question, to initiate. And that alone shifts the entire psychological dynamic. Waiting creates gravity. It makes the other person wonder what you are thinking, what you are planning, whether you even care. That silence becomes a mystery they feel compelled to solve. And once they begin reaching for answers, you have already won. Because now their thoughts revolve around you. Their imagination fills in the gaps. And more often than not, it fills them with guilt, fear, and doubt. Did they go too far? Are you hurt? Are you done with them? Their confidence begins to erode, not because of anything you said, but because of everything you did not say. This is the paradox of power. Sometimes, to gain control, you must do nothing. You must resist the urge to clarify, to explain, to soften the tension. That tension is your weapon. The silence is your move. The longer you can endure the discomfort, the more authority you gain. Most people think dominance comes from volume, from being the loudest in the room. But Machiavelli knew the opposite is true. Power often speaks loudest through restraint. The one who waits, who observes, who does not flinch, they become the figure others must approach. And the moment they do, the balance tilts. Because once they make the first move, once they speak, once they explain, they are admitting something. They needed closure more than you did. They broke first. And that break tells you everything. So next time the silence settles after conflict, do not rush to escape it. Sit in it, own it, because in that stillness you are not losing connection, you are shifting control. And in the psychology of conflict, the one who waits always wins. An apology feels noble, it feels human, healing, and honorable. But in the eyes of Machiavelli, it is also a calculated risk, one that, when used carelessly, becomes a weapon turned against yourself. Most people see an apology as a gift, a gesture of maturity. But beneath the surface, it is something more dangerous, an emotional surrender. Because the moment you say, "I'm sorry," you are not just addressing the past, you are giving the other person something invisible but powerful. You are giving them confirmation that they were right to be hurt, right to be angry, right to see you as flawed. And while that may seem fair in a moral sense, it can be fatal in a psychological one. Machiavelli believed that power was never given, it was only taken. And every apology, when said at the wrong time, gives the other person a chance to take something from you. Your composure, your image, your place in the hierarchy. What happens next is subtle. They may accept your apology, but a seed is planted. The next time conflict arises, they remember. They remember that you are quick to kneel, that you fear disconnection more than they do, that you are willing to lose face for peace. And people, even the kind ones, do not forget those imbalances. They may not say it out loud, but your sorry rewrites the rules. You become the one who restores harmony. You become the one who breaks the silence. You become the emotional bridge. And that role, once assumed, is nearly impossible to escape. It becomes expected. But what if you do not say sorry? What if you hold the silence? What if you allow the discomfort to settle, to linger, to test both of you? That is where respect begins to form, not from perfection, but from restraint. People do not respect those who explain themselves too quickly. They respect those who can carry the weight of tension without collapsing. That kind of presence is rare, and in that rarity there is value. A late apology, given with strength and precision, is far more powerful than a rushed one dripping with emotion. When you apologize without urgency, on your terms, from a place of stillness rather than fear, it becomes a statement not of regret, but of control. You are not saying, "Please forgive me." You are saying, "I chose to say this now, because I could have stayed silent." And that changes everything. In a world where people are trained to apologize out of impulse, the one who withholds becomes the one who leads. Because in the end, it is not about who said sorry. It is about who moved first. And once you understand that, you never speak from weakness again. There is something haunting about silence after conflict. It stretches across the space like fog, thick with everything that was not said. Most people cannot bear it. They rush to fill it with noise, with apologies, with explanations that bleed power. But Machiavelli understood something the modern world has forgotten: that distance, not closeness, is what creates value. After confrontation, your instinct might be to reach out, to reconnect, to make sure they still care. But that instinct, if followed too quickly, turns power into desperation. Because when you move towards someone after a fight, you shrink, you become smaller in their eyes. Not because you are wrong, but because you showed need. And in the psychology of power, need is always a weakness. The one who can sit in distance without losing composure becomes magnetic. Their absence speaks louder than words. It forces the other person to feel the tension, to notice the space you once filled. It is in that emptiness that realization grows. They begin to wonder where you went, not just physically, but emotionally. Are you done? Are you angry? Are you over it? That uncertainty becomes a mirror, reflecting their own behavior back at them, and if they care even a little, it begins to bother them. This is the power of distance. It forces the other person to work, to think, to question, and in doing so, they shift their focus away from what you said and toward what they did. They begin to retrace the argument, looking for where they went too far, where they might have misread your silence. You do not have to point it out. The space does it for you. Most people fear being perceived as cold, but what they do not realize is that emotional restraint, when used with precision, creates heat. It draws people in. It forces attention. When you remove your presence, it becomes more valuable. That is the paradox. You are not pushing them away. You are making them reach. And in that reach, the dynamic changes. You are no longer the one trying to fix things. You are the one being pursued, the one being wondered about. That subtle shift rewrites the emotional contract between you. It says, I am not waiting for you. I am watching you. And that message, even in silence, echoes louder than any apology ever could. So hold your ground. Do not send the message. Do not call first. Let the distance speak. Let it teach them what your presence once gave, and what your absence now demands. Because in the art of conflict, the one who walks away without flinching is the one they never forget. Uncertainty is a force most people cannot tolerate. They crave closure, answers, a clean ending. But Machiavelli knew that the human mind, when left in suspense, begins to unravel. After a conflict, if you remain silent, not cold, not cruel, just unreadable, you trigger something ancient in the other person. A need to know where they stand, to understand how badly they hurt you, how much you care, whether the door is still open or forever closed. And in that void of clarity, their mind starts to race. The longer you stay quiet, the more control you gain, because now they are having the conversation alone with themselves. They replay the argument, not from their own point of view, but from yours. They start to question their words, their tone, their timing. Did they go too far? Did they misunderstand? Did they just lose something they did not realize was important? That is the beauty of uncertainty. It keeps you in their head, even when you are nowhere near them. Your absence becomes louder than presence. Your silence becomes the main character in their story. And while they struggle to make sense of your stillness, you remain calm, composed, watching. This is not manipulation, it is discipline. Because most people, when they sense uncertainty, react. They try to fix it, to explain themselves, to soften the air. But every time they do, they give a little more power away. You, on the other hand, become a riddle they cannot solve. And people are drawn to what they cannot understand. The more mysterious your reaction, the more energy they invest trying to interpret it. And that energy is control. That attention is leverage. You are no longer the one seeking resolution. You have become the one they must decode. The key is never to fake indifference. That is too obvious. True power lies in silent presence, the kind that does not chase, but does not fully retreat either. You are still there, but unreachable, still visible, but unshaken. And that posture sends a message stronger than any confrontation ever could. It says, you no longer know how to read me. And that single thought drives people into emotional motion. They begin to doubt themselves, to soften their stance, to open doors they once slammed shut, all because they cannot stand the fog you left behind. Most people are addicted to knowing where they stand. So when you deny them that certainty, you become something rare, a person they cannot predict, a mind they cannot control. And in the game of psychological dominance, the one who cannot be decoded always holds the upper hand. There is a moment after conflict where everything hangs in the balance, not because of what is said, but because of how you look. People think power is in words, in the ability to argue or explain. But Machiavelli knew something deeper. Posture, expression, and stillness are louder than any apology. The cold look, calm, unreadable, unbothered, is a weapon most people never learn to wield. After a fight, the world watches your face. They look for signs of weakness, remorse, panic, or need. And the one who breaks first, even with a single expression, begins to lose ground. But the person who holds their face steady, no smirk, no flinch, no flash of sadness, becomes something else entirely. They become untouchable. This is not about arrogance. It is about stability. In that stillness, others begin to doubt their own emotions. They expected anger. They expected tears. They expected anything but your calm. And when you give them nothing, they are forced to confront their own behavior in the void your silence creates. You become a mirror they cannot read, a face they cannot decipher. And that unreadability creates tension, because now they no longer know what you are thinking. That doubt is a slow poison to their confidence. Most people are desperate to be understood. They emote loudly, hoping someone will decode them and give them what they need. But when you master the cold look, you sever that dependency. You no longer seek comfort. You become your own authority. You stop bleeding emotion into the room and start shaping the room with your presence. There is a rare kind of fear that comes when someone stays still. It signals control, discipline, patience. It forces the other person to question whether they have truly affected you or simply exposed themselves. And that shift from your reaction to their reflection is what turns emotional chaos into psychological dominance. People expect to see a response, so when you give them nothing, it unsettles them. They are left holding the heat of the argument alone. They begin to feel like the only one who lost control, and in that imbalance, they look to you not for forgiveness, but for emotional cues. But you give them none. You sit with your posture intact, eyes calm, tone level, and they start to feel the weight of their own behavior. Not because you punished them, but because you didn't. The cold look is not about revenge. It is about declaring, without words, that you are not owned by the moment. You are not shaken. You are not available for emotional negotiation. And in a world of people desperate to be seen and understood, the one who offers no expression becomes the one they never forget. They always want you to break first. After a fight, they wait quietly, subtly, for that moment when you reach out, soften your tone, or offer a hand of peace. They do not say it aloud, but their silence is strategic. It is a test. They are watching to see if you still care enough to chase resolution. And most people do. Most people cannot stand the tension, the unknown, the cold distance that follows conflict. They crave certainty, even if it means bowing first. But Machiavelli would tell you that this is where the real war begins, not during the argument, but in the uneasy quiet that follows. The person who holds out longest gains control, because the one who cracks first becomes the emotional servant of the other. They confirm what the other was hoping, that you are still tied to them, still seeking closure, still affected. And that knowledge, once given, is almost impossible to take back. The moment you move first, you give them the script. You let them decide how to respond, whether to forgive, whether to ignore you, whether to use your vulnerability as leverage later. This is why the aftermath is more important than the conflict itself. The true shift in power happens in silence. It happens in restraint. Every second you do not move is a second they begin to doubt their own position. Did they go too far? Are you done? Are they now the one who should have said something? That reversal begins quietly. It creeps in through small thoughts, then builds, and the more time passes without your response, the more likely they are to question themselves. But if you break too soon, if you speak, apologize, or explain, that doubt vanishes. They win. They held out longer. They became the standard you had to meet. And now the power dynamic tilts in their favor. This is the hidden law of emotional warfare. The one who needs less controls more. When you refuse to flinch, when you do not chase, when you let them wonder, you become a force they must consider, not a feeling they can manipulate. And yes, it is uncomfortable. It goes against everything you were taught about relationships, kindness, and communication. But power has its own logic. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to hold the line. Let them come to you. Let them feel the absence. Let them sit in the silence they helped create. Because if they really care, they will move. And if they do not, you will know exactly where you stand without having sacrificed your pride to find out. There is a dangerous kind of peace that people chase without realizing what it costs. The kind where you apologize just to make things quiet. Where you swallow your pride even when you were right, just to avoid tension. On the surface, it looks like strength. It looks mature. But Machiavelli would call it a mistake, not because peace is wrong, but because peace built on your submission is a lie. Every time you say sorry just to smooth things over, you teach the other person something about you. You teach them that you are afraid of conflict, that you value comfort more than respect, that you are willing to carry the blame just to keep them close. And people remember that. Even if they don't use it immediately, they store it away. Because the next time there's a disagreement, they know exactly how long to wait. They know if they stay cold, if they stay quiet, you will break first again. That is how patterns are born. And patterns, once formed, become prisons. You start to believe that your job is to repair every crack, to keep the air clear, to always be the one who takes the high road. But that road is not noble if it leads you to resentment. You are not a better person for saying sorry when you mean none of it. You are just quieter, and that quiet starts to feel like worthlessness. Because the more you give without demand, the more invisible you become. People begin to expect your forgiveness. They begin to cross your boundaries, knowing you will always return. This is what Machiavelli warned against, the slow erosion of power disguised as goodness. False peace is worse than open war because it teaches others how to hurt you without consequence. They learn that you fear distance, that you'll trade your dignity for connection, that all it takes is silence or withdrawal to make you bend. And once they know that, they never truly respect you again. Real peace is not built on apologies you didn't mean. It is built on mutual understanding, on boundaries that are respected, not negotiated under pressure. If someone truly values you, they will meet you halfway. They will reach out, reflect, and repair. But if you're always the one to apologize first, they never have to. They can hurt you without cost, and you will thank them for the pain. So, the next time you're tempted to make peace too soon, stop. Ask yourself what kind of peace you're buying and what you're paying for it. Because a peace that costs your pride will always come back to collect more. And eventually, you'll forget who you were before you became the one who always said sorry. Most people react too soon. The moment things go wrong, they rush to fix, to explain, to soothe. They fear being misunderstood, so they speak. They fear being resented, so they apologize. But Machiavelli would tell you that the faster you move, the weaker you become, because impulse is the enemy of power. The wise do not react, they delay. After conflict, your emotions are loud, your thoughts are chaotic. Everything in you wants to reach for clarity. But clarity gained too early is usually an illusion. In that state, you are not thinking, you are bleeding. And when you speak from that place, you hand your authority to the person who wounded you. You make them the one who decides what your pain means. But when you delay, something changes. Time clears the fog. The emotional pressure begins to fade. You start to see not just how you feel, but what you want. You begin to understand whether an apology would bring strength or only surrender. That space between the conflict and your response is where your power grows. Because now you are not speaking to be understood, you are choosing whether to speak at all. That choice is everything. It means you are no longer reacting. You are deciding. You are observing not just them, but yourself. And this self-awareness creates leverage. It allows you to ask the questions most people never ask. Do they deserve my apology? Would silence serve me more? Am I giving too much by moving first? These questions are not cold, they are strategic. Because not every apology heals. Some make things worse. Some teach the other person that your dignity is negotiable, that your boundaries can be smoothed over with just the right amount of guilt. But if you wait, you see more. You begin to notice their silence, their posture, their own guilt or lack of it. You stop acting like the one who must fix everything. You become the one who watches. And the one who watches sees the game for what it is. There is no reward for apologizing out of panic. Only the illusion of peace. The real reward comes when you learn to hold your tongue, not from pride, but from discipline. That is what separates the impulsive from the powerful. Delay is not avoidance, it is refinement. It is how you decide what your next move says about you and what it demands from them. Because once you master the pause, you no longer fear the silence after conflict. You own it, you use it, and in that space, you become untouchable. There is a kind of apology that does not bend, it cuts. Most people imagine saying sorry as lowering themselves, as giving something up. But Machiavelli saw the truth behind it. A well-timed, well-crafted apology is not an act of surrender. It is a move sharp, cold, and calculated. The weak apologize from the heart. The powerful apologize from the mind. Because a strategic apology does not come from guilt, it comes from control. When you delay your apology, when you let the dust settle and the silence stretch, your words carry more weight. You are no longer speaking in desperation. You are speaking as someone who could have stayed silent but chose not to. And that choice is terrifying to the other person. It means you have the discipline to hold back, the clarity to observe, and the power to move when it benefits you. When you say sorry from that position, it disarms them. Not because it's soft, but because it's unexpected. It sounds composed, precise, almost surgical. You are not asking for forgiveness. You are giving it, and that flips the dynamic entirely. They no longer see you as the one trying to fix things. They see you as the one who already moved on, who paused only to close the loop, not because you had to, but because you could. That kind of apology does not invite discussion. It ends it. There is no begging, no nervous tone, no long explanation. Just a few words that signal strength and finality. That is the Machiavellian way not to avoid apology, but to weaponize it. Because when used correctly, It makes people question their own role in the conflict. It forces them to ask, why does this not feel like forgiveness? The answer is simple. It's not about forgiveness. It's about power. A strategic apology keeps the frame in your hands. It lets you define what happened, what it meant, and what comes next. And if done right, it forces the other person to reflect, to recalibrate, to feel unsettled by your poise. Most are used to apologies soaked in emotion, but when yours is clean, deliberate, and delayed, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a message. I am not controlled by you. I am not pleading. I am choosing. And when people feel that, they don't feel victory, they feel the ground shift beneath them, because you gave them closure, but not control. You gave them words, but not your pride. And that kind of apology, spoken from a position of dominance, does not restore the past. It rewrites it. Power is not in how easily you forgive. It is in how hard you make others work to earn it. Most people give away their softness too quickly. They feel conflict and rush to repair it. They feel guilt and immediately open their arms. But Machiavelli would call this a mistake, not because forgiveness is wrong, but because unearned forgiveness is a form of weakness. When someone hurts you and you make it easy for them to return, you teach them a dangerous lesson. You teach them that their actions have no cost, that they can cross your boundaries, speak carelessly, even betray you, and you will still be there, ready to patch things up. That kind of softness is not love. It is surrender in disguise, and over time, it corrodes your dignity. People begin to expect your emotional labor. They rely on your kindness like a safety net. They stop guarding their words because they know you will catch the fallout. But when you make them earn your softness, something changes. You become valuable, rare, respected. They realize that connection with you is not a guarantee, it is a privilege. That your presence is not given freely, but held in place by standards they must meet. This is not about being cold or cruel. It is about protecting the weight of your affection. If anyone can have it, it means nothing. But if it must be earned through growth, through reflection, through effort, then it becomes something others hold carefully. And that care is what builds real connection. Machiavelli understood that power often comes from what you withhold. In a world full of people begging to be liked, the one who pauses, who chooses when to forgive and when to remain silent, becomes a force others cannot ignore. Your softness must be a decision, not a default. Let others wonder where they stand. Let them sit in the discomfort of your distance. If they truly value you, they will move. They will reach, they will reflect, and in that reaching, they grow. Because what they earn, they protect, and what they fight to restore, they never forget. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept, and every time you give them easy access to your peace, you make it cheaper. So raise the price. Not to punish them, but to honor yourself. Let your love be a reward, not a reflex. Let your apology be earned, not assumed. That is how you build relationships with gravity, not through constant giving, but through careful choosing. And in that choosing, you show the world that your softness is not weakness. It is power wrapped in discipline. The one who moves first, after conflict, loses more than just pride. They lose the frame. They lose the silence that could have created pressure. They lose the mystery that could have made others reflect. Machiavelli knew that the greatest power is not always in action, but in the refusal to act until it serves you. When you say sorry first, you signal that you are willing to trade strength for relief. You give away the tension that could have worked in your favor. You relieve the discomfort that could have made them come to you. And most dangerously, You confirm that you are the one who needs resolution more. But when you wait, when you do not chase, when you do not fold, when you let the silence breathe, something strange begins to happen. The world bends toward you. People grow restless in your stillness. They start to question themselves. They begin to wonder if they were wrong, if they went too far, if they have now become the one who owes something. That reversal is the quietest kind of victory. No shouting, no debate, no dramatic speech. Just space, just stillness, just you, holding the frame and refusing to move until it serves your position. And when you do speak, when you do extend a hand, when you do forgive, it is not expected. It is not weak. It is powerful. Because it was withheld. Because it came after patience. Because it came from choice, not impulse. That kind of apology does not lower you. It elevates you. It reminds them that you were always in control, not of them, but of yourself. And in a world full of people who explode, chase, and beg, the one who does none of those things becomes unforgettable. You teach people that your presence is not free, that your peace must be respected, that your silence is not emptiness, it is authority. So never say sorry first. Let them come to you. Let them feel your absence. Let them work to reach you. Not because you are playing games, but because you are done giving your power away to those who expect it for nothing. And if they never come, then you know the truth. They were not sorry either. They were not worthy of your softness. And your silence gave them the chance to reveal that. This is the rule no one teaches. The rule that keeps you in control even when everything feels personal. Do not break the silence. Do not fold first. Make them move. Make them speak. Make them work. Because the one who stays still in the storm always walks out holding the crown. Subscribe for more psychological warfare they hope you never discover.